Hello, welcome to Casual Veteran Gamer. In the video today I'm going to be going through a build for a fighter that I have created recently. My first idea was that it was going to be a tank, hence the name, but as I tested it, it kind of morphed into being more than just a tank. I mean, I don't like using MMO terms anyway, so I was always a bit wary of using that term. Anyway, straight into it. Backgrounds, it doesn't really matter too much. As a fighter, you can choose to have acrobatics anyway. I would say for your skills, skip to those first. You really want acrobatics and athletics to help resist being shoved, otherwise completely up to you. For race, I picked a shield dwarf for two reasons. One, we get +2 constitution, +2 strength, which allows us to go up to 16 in both of those stats without using too many points, ability points. And secondly, we have this dwarven resilience. I had in fact even originally made this a ranger, but as I go through the video I'll explain why I didn't end up taking a ranger. But the whole point of this build is to try and resist attacks and damage as much as possible, so having resistance to at least one type of damage is good, and we get some dark vision. Other races that could work, basically we're looking for having extra constitution and strength, which comes down to human, because you get +1 and everything. And half elves would work also, because you get to choose strength and constitution. Appearance, whatever you want. Class, fighter, take the defense passive. We're trying to stack armor class, kind of building upon my last video and a comment someone was making about trying to get a consistently high armor class effectively. As for ability points, so +3 in strength, because we are going to be using our strength as the melee attack. Doesn't have to be, I suppose this could be dexterity. I just prefer strength myself because we get the extra jump and extra carry weight. Also, as a dwarf, we don't have a high movement speed, we've got a relatively low movement speed, so the extra jumping distance can help. We still want dexterity at 14 though as a minimum to maximise our use of medium armour and to give ourselves extra damage and attack bonus for when we're using ranged weapons. Constitution at 16, I don't often do this, but we're trying to create someone who will survive, so we want as maximum constitution as possible really. And then we've basically got enough to either put 10 on everything or an 8 and a 12. I've put 12 in wisdom because plenty of spells target wisdom as a saving throw, such as being held and being frightened. So to try and maximise the chances of that not happening, putting wisdom up to 12. At level 2 there are no choices for a fighter, so I've just skipped to level 3 here, and we get the choice between Battlemaster or Eldritch Knight. I've gone with Battlemaster in the end, and I'm going to pick Menacing Attack because that is a great strong choice because it can stop enemies attacking. You might get a free opportunity attack. Not really. Going to pick Riposte because the whole idea for this build is we have a relatively high armor class for most enemies, so we're actually going to get plenty of attacks in outside of our turn. And Disarming Attack because not quite as powerful as Menacing Attack, but still very good against enemies that are using weapons, basically non-magic users. At level 4, what I've gone with, just because I've not really used this feat very much before, is Defensive Duelist. Unfortunately, this does overlap with Riposte, as in they both use a reaction, but I'm not sure it's quite working perfectly, so it does seem like we do get to use both. What Defensive Duelist does is we get the option down here. The creature uses this reaction to increase its armor class by 2, potentially causing the attack to miss. Practically how this works is it increases our armor class by 2 until we're hit with an attack, at which point the status disappears. We've also got Riposte, we may as well have them both going because I'm fairly sure the attack misses, Defensive Duelist goes down, and then it uses a reaction to put up Riposte. I'm not sure that Defensive Duelist uses up the reaction until after the enemy's attack. Right, items. I've already gone and killed the Githyanki Patrol. Which is why I've got the Githyanki crossbow here and the Githyanki short sword. Originally, I stole this from Lae'zel, this Githyanki half-plate, which is also why Shadowheart's got one. As for other items, the Bracing Band is fairly important. This gives +1 armor class. It doesn't seem like much, but the armor classes we're getting to with this build are getting to the point where most enemies, at least above ground, have got a very, very small chance of hitting, and every single extra armor class we can get decreases that further and further. I've also taken the Ring of Colour Spray. This isn't so important. Both of these are found just after defeating the Harpies. As for the remaining equipment, we want a shield, Got a helmet, protects against critical hits. This is essential, actually, because it can make it impossible for things to hit you with a ranged or melee attack. I've bought the metallic gloves and these metallic boots. All of these actually came from Damon inside the Druid's Grove to try and help against anything we can against being shoved here with athletics and strength saving throws, because a few things require us to make a strength saving throw. So look at my armor class, it's 24. So 15 from the armor, 2 from dexterity, 2 from a shield, 1 from the fighting style, 2 from Shield of Faith. That's currently Shadowheart, putting that onto the fighter here, and 2 for defensive duelist. And if we shove, that goes up to 25. Now the reason that extra armor class is actually really quite important. So this enemy here has dexterity of 16, so plus 3 to attack with the bow, plus 2 proficiency. So they get a plus 5 to their attack, which means to hit us with an armor class of 25, they have to roll a 20. And even if they roll a 20, it's not a critical hit. So they'll literally have a 5% chance to hit us, and if we stand in melee range, they've got disadvantage on that attack. Let's have a quick look at Anders. His strength is 16, proficiency bonus plus 2. So he's got a plus 5 to his attack, although his sword does give him plus 1. He's got plus 6 to his attack. So he's got maybe a 10% chance to hit us. Which, when you think about it, is really, really low. I would hate to have a 10% chance to attack. I'm going to quickly explain why I didn't take the ranger in the end. I actually played a lot longer with this build as a ranger. But the ranger's damage quite often comes from Hunter's Mark, which means using bonus actions all the time. But I really want to be using a bonus action to be shoving, to keep the armor class up as high as possible. And I ended up really not doing much damage. Colossus Slayer helped a little bit. What I'm going to show you here is the character I've made, taking on these 4 enemies and not dying. Depending on how quickly it is, I might speed up the combat, because I don't want it to drag on too long. But let's have a look. I've practiced this a few times now, and one thing I've noticed is kind of the one weakness of this build in terms of avoiding damage are wizards. Magic Missile is going to hit us no matter what we do. We can't stop Magic Missile from hitting us, it's just impossible. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use Menacing Attack. Oh, I got very lucky there with a critical hit. Right, they got 1 hit point left. And I get to go first. That's just lucky. So what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to try and attack. I miss, that's okay. And I shove it. It doesn't matter whether shove works or not. Very quickly show you. Armor class is 25. See what Anders does. Not very much. Quick look at Rurik. He's only got a plus 4 to hit. It's impossible for this guy to hit us. Literally impossible. Okay, that's a bit annoying. I'm not worried about that. They missed. So don't have a very high chance to hit. This is where using items can help. One great thing about this build is because of riposte, if I walk away and they attack and they miss, I get an attack back. And without having used an attack, I've actually taken out one of the mirror images. Do you know what? 1 down. Easily the most dangerous. I've got myself in a bit of a situation here where I can't shove any person, but it doesn't mean I can't shove anything. At the very worst, if there's nothing around you to shove, you can drop anything you want and then shove it. It's fine. Now I'm going to try and close the distance, try and get close to Trin here, so she has disadvantage on her attacks. Also, don't be afraid to use the environment. I've got a riposte attack in there. Let's switch back. So that's specific to this fight, but it still helps. Right, push. Don't really care whether it works, just want the high armor class. Also want to point out I am bloodless. I let the Starion feed me last night. Ooh, we got an attack in. Ah, that's because defensive duelist had already been used in that turn. That is the other downside of defensive duelist, is it only works for 1 attack in a turn. So the more attacks that are coming at you, the less valuable it is. So as I slowly get through these, my defensive duelist is actually going to be more and more useful. Managed to roll the minimum of, not minimum, but they needed 18. Managed to roll 19 with disadvantage. It will happen, it's just not very common. Acid is very dangerous. It lowers our armor class. I'm actually starting to get quite hurt here now. Just you will eventually take some hits. It's not. We're never going to be able to be immune to everything in the game. Bear in mind, this dwarf is getting 3 attacks against us every single turn. And there we have it. Right, it was a bit close, but it's also 4 on 1. And I'm not trying to hide, I'm just standing up to their attacks. Also making sure I take out the wizard first. Up until this point, I did have Shadowheart. You can see she's still concentrating on Shield of Faith. What we can do now, I don't know if this will get changed in the future. But what we can do now is have our fighter cast Shield of Faith on herself. So now Shadowheart's free to do whatever she wants. And then switch back to what we were using before. And you'll notice I've still got Shield of Faith. Now it's quite a good idea to put it onto this fighter, in one sense anyway, because they're not very likely to get hurt. Also, the Constitution's quite high, so they're quite likely to pass Constitution saving throws and not even take very many of them. So I've got the Gnolls trapped in the cave, and the only way to get out is to go past the fighter. They will, to get to these guys at the back. So let's give this a go. Who should we attack first? The one we're most likely to hit. So now we've got our range support here, while Tav tries to tank as many hits as possible. Now, unfortunately with acid, we're going to have to move out of the acid. Otherwise the armor class goes down by 2. Need to shove someone. And I don't really want to let them get past very easily, so I'm not going to jump in there. Then we don't have to use our normal attacks. You could use any consumable items that you want to. It's a miss, a riposte. Slightly unlucky to miss there. So they're going to use dash. Since I've used my reaction, they're quite happy to dash past. And that's why we have riposte. We got essentially a free attack. Not free, but we got an attack at a time we wouldn't normally get an attack. Now, with so many enemies in one area, very tempting to do that. Will's basically going to be offered up as a sacrifice. Good, she's got Invoke Duplicity. Go for level 2. Get the big numbers going. Right, it's time to cause some real damage with this one now. One positive side to having an Arcane Trickster is Magic Missile. It kind of, your whole party has to be built around this, in one sense, otherwise the high armor class is going to go to waste. Because the AI will pretty much not target the character with a high AC if they can help it. So you do need some ranged support for this class. It's not something to take on whole battles by themselves, but they do benefit from being up close while everyone else is far away. Let me know what you think about this build, whether you'd even consider using it, what changes would you make, what preferences do you have, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.